Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about a monster storm system bringing a major snowstorm and a possible blizzard with 2 rounds of severe weather with all 3 modes, including damaging winds, large hail, and a couple tornadoes over the next 7 days. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and the notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. This is Friday, October the 8th. Happy Friday, everyone. This is the 500 millibar on the North American view. You can really see this ridge of high pressure locked and loaded over southeast Canada, bringing all the warmer conditions for the central and eastern 2/3 of the U.S., while we have a deepening trough out here off the west coast, bringing much cooler conditions and some welcome rain. But we got a secondary one building, and that's the main player with the very colder air mass and bringing all the severe weather, and then a possible major snowstorm and blizzard on the table as well. So let's take a look at the overall water vapor imagery happening this morning. You can see this moisture feed funneling into parts of California, bringing some welcome rain for them. You can see the orange here down here. That's the depiction of drier air. But out to the right of that boundary line, that's when it really starts to enhance and bring the very heavy rain that we've seen over the last several days, and that continues to push off to the east. So now the flash flood watches are set over portions of northern and central Georgia here, in parts of South Carolina, as well as getting into parts of North Carolina. That's where they're going to see all the heavier rains today. Out west, you can start to see the developing of very high winds, and that's just going to be what's to come for much of the week, with wind advisories already in place for parts of California as well as Nevada here. And then we also have winter weather advisories too. It's very subtle. There's not much cold air to work with currently right now, but a lot of this will really start to build, and I expect a major snowstorm, if not blizzard-like conditions, starting to break out as we get into that Monday, Tuesday time frame. So let's take a look at the overall drought index for the U.S. map. This comes out every Thursday. So this was yesterday, October the 7th, and you can definitely see the graph here at the top of the screen of the extreme drought and the exceptional drought for much of the West. So any of that rain that falls right now currently is definitely welcome in that neck of the woods. We took a major dent with the monsoon into parts of the desert Southwest, but they still need a lot of help. And we're starting to see some drought conditions starting to creep back into Oklahoma as well as Texas. But fortunately, we do got some rain, but unfortunately it's going to be coming in the form of severe weather for you guys. As to the north, we also have some heavier rains going to be up into the Dakotas as well as Minnesota, where they desperately need it as well. So you can definitely see off here to the east, and then there's Hawaii coming back with the drought, and there's not much. There's a little bit of drought in Puerto Rico as well. So let's take a look at the overall U.S. map, is where the rain's going to fall today. To the right side of that boundary line, that's where the heavier rains, that's why they got the flash flood watches in effect for parts of Georgia here, going into Florida with some heavier rains. And that'll fishtail up to the north and spread into just pockets of scattered showers into parts of the Ohio Valley. There's the rain that you saw in the water vapor imagery for California. That is definitely welcome needed. That goes into Utah as well as Idaho here, and then much of Wyoming. A lot of this is rain currently, might be some snow in the higher elevations, but back behind it, that's when that second surge of very colder air, and that's where the heavier snow is going to fall as we get into the day on Monday and Tuesday. But out ahead of it, there's that warm sector with that ridge of high pressure parked right over southeast Canada. Man, that's just bringing all the warm air, and if not near record temperatures today in parts of Texas, going into Dallas, Fort Worth, 94, 95. I think the record's 95 today. Tomorrow the record's 96. So we could easily get near or touch it in Dallas, into Oklahoma, going into Kansas. So it's got a lot of fuel. It's going to be feeding the atmosphere and the upper atmosphere when this storm taps into that energy. And that's going to be the main player for our severe weather as we get into the day on Sunday, which we'll go over. But back behind it, you can definitely see a cooler air mass out west. But this is not the really cold stuff. It's that second surge we're waiting on. And that'll bring the freezing temperatures and then the heavier snows as we get into the day on Monday. Because on Saturday, you can see the vorticity index. We kind of in between systems in Texas with that ridge of high pressure. We're waiting on that system out here off west. This kind of dies down. That's brought all the heavier floods into much of Alabama and much of the southeast. That starts to die off as we see this surge right here. But we also have this surge up here up into parts of Alaska here. That is going to be our main player as we get into the day on Monday. But before that, we've got this one to work with as we get into Texas, because by Sunday, that gets just a little bit closer, parking itself out in West Texas by the 4 o'clock out of time frame. That's when we have to see that some of that severe weather starting to get its act together and really start to break out as the jet stream really starts to split and in the upper levels. And that's the concern that we have, because we have a very active jet at the 500 millibar screaming in off the west. We've got an 850 millibar wind flow coming in off the Gulf Coast. That's where that split in the atmosphere is going to take place. And out ahead of it, we got to be concerned about tornadoes breaking out into parts of North Texas, getting into East Texas, going into Oklahoma City, a good chunk of eastern parts of Oklahoma, and especially parts of Kansas as we get into the Sunday night time frame. So, and then in fact, the Storm Prediction Center is already upgraded to an enhanced risk, and this was expanded yesterday. Now, granted, this is 3 days out, so this is definitely concerning. They're pretty bullish on this system, and with what I showed you, yeah, so areas into DFW, going into Plano, Richardson, into Denton, into Louisville. All those areas in Oklahoma City are going to be under the gun for that severe weather breaking out, with all 3 modes on the table for damaging winds, large hail, and including a couple tornadoes. And you still have to be concerned with it back building down to the south and in and around, getting into the heart of the Metroplex, and even going all as far south as Waco as we get into the overnight hours on Sunday night, but especially like places in Kansas. But the bullseye looks to be right in the heart of, say, the Oklahoma City area, getting into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, especially points to the north. So if you live in the northern areas of the Metroplex for DFW, that is your greatest concern, as this fish would continue to build as it pushes off from west to east as we go into the nighttime hours on Sunday night. There's the significant tornado parameter index. I stopped it here about 9 o'clock. So I think that's where things really start to get active with the dry line and the triple point really starting to take shape. We've got warm dew points out ahead of it, well into the 70s out here. We've got all that warm air well ahead of the system, with the record high temperatures, near record high temperatures happening for today and tomorrow. So yeah, once that jet comes across and we've got that cold air aloft, that's going to set the stage for that severe weather. We could have some supercells breaking out, say about 9 o'clock, moving in from just right along the I-35 corridor into Oklahoma as well as North Texas. And that will move across of about a 6-hour time frame from about 9 p.m. to about 3 o'clock in the morning into the overnight hours on Monday, where we could have that pocket. But before that, you always have to be concerned ahead with a couple tornadoes and that large hail, and then it will form into a solid line, and that's when the damaging wind threat will start to take a hold. But it could be these storms could be packing a punch in that 6-hour time frame. So definitely be on the lookout. Have your weather radios handy with this system, because it means business with everything that's on the table that I'm seeing currently. So yes, as we get into that overnight Sunday night, Monday time frame, there's the low pressure parked itself up over Oklahoma into North Texas. We have to look at this feature out here. There's some rain and some higher winds off the Carolina coast with this feature that we'll go over here in a little bit. But back behind Sunday night, that's when the beginning stages of that colder air will start funneling in from the northwest as we start to have our major snow events start to take shape out there. But before that, out here off the Carolina coast, the National Hurricane Center has highlighted a 30% chance of what they call Invest 92L, possibly forming into some sort of tropical storm system. And if it does, it's going to be Tropical Storm Wanda. But you can definitely see all the models. If it does actually, develop over the next 3 days, it has about a 3-day window. So it's got today's Friday. So we're talking Friday, Saturday into Monday. If it doesn't develop by Monday, it's not going to happen. But if it does develop, it looks to be a lot of the model guidance has it safely offshore, but still close enough to bring some higher wind gust, some tropical storm force wind gust along the coastal regions and some heavier rains in the coastal regions of North Carolina. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But I'm not expecting for this to be making landfall as a possible tropical storm, as it looks to remain safely offshore. So yes, as we get into the day on Monday, that's when we have our main player really starting to take shape. We've got that one system that did all the damage in Oklahoma and North Texas on Sunday. That'll continue into parts of lift a little bit further off north into Missouri, into Illinois. We might have a little bit of severe weather. It's not going to be nearly as intense by then, that's for sure, as we watch our secondary system coming in off the west coast. That's going to bring all the colder air and the very stormy conditions with that second round. So, because by the time you wake up on Monday morning, there's your freezing temperatures well out west for much of the reds and purples here for those below freezing temperatures, if not in the teens, if some areas even below zero conditions out here in Western Canada. So it's got some very cold air with it. And underneath that cold air, as those isobars really start to tighten up, that's when our major snowstorm really starts to take shape. As we get into that Monday, October the 11th time frame, the date is always at the top of every slide on the video. And as we get to that day, Idaho, Montana, going into Wyoming, Nevada here with some heavier snows in the higher elevations with that one storm system bringing that heavier rains into Missouri and Iowa, as well as Illinois as we get into the day on that Monday afternoon time frame. Because yes, by the time we get into Tuesday, there's all that cold air continuing to funnel down from the north, with those below freezing temperatures maximizing out here off west, bringing in that colder air. But well to the south here is that you're still got in the warm sector and much of Oklahoma and Texas with another round of severe weather on the table. Because yes, by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon, this when it really starts to take shape with the monster storm really starting to break out with the very extreme winds, bringing very heavy snow. And then all these winds will be really packing a punch. And then we set the stage for our second round of severe weather that's on the table. We also have to look for Pamela down here into the Eastern Pacific. That's going to be a main player as we get into the Thursday and Friday time frame. So we got a lot going on. But underneath that, man, you can definitely see all the heavier snows. This is every 3 hours. So I just kind of stopped it on Tuesday, about 3-4 o'clock time frame. All the heavier snows will continue to break out. You're talking places like central and southern Montana here, especially getting into Wyoming is going to get really clocked with this system. Western parts of Colorado, I don't think it really bleeds into Denver eastward. Everything stays up in the higher elevations and the foothills. As we watch Pamela, probably going to be a minimal hurricane by then off the East Coast. But as the active jet comes across, that's going to be able to lift Pamela towards Mexico and then actually die out in the mountains of Mexico, but actually spread the leftover precipitation into Texas. So I'll show you that here in a little bit. But before that, we've got that second round of severe weather really starting to break out into North Texas, with that dry line really starting to take shape again. So now we're setting the stage for another round into West Texas, into Oklahoma again, unfortunately. So yes, it's a 1-2 punch, as we're going to be dealing with some more severe weather as we get into the day on Tuesday timeframe, October the 12th. And yes, by Wednesday, man, that thing's really starting to crank. The isobar is really starting to type up. You can see this comma shape area here. So on the south side, that's where you got the severe weather. On the north side, on the wraparound side, that's the cold side. That's bringing all the heavier snows, if not probably blizzard-like conditions, as this will pull Pamela further north into Mexico. That'll die out the higher elevations of Mexico, but spread its leftover precipitation into Texas as we get into the day on Wednesday. So yes, by that Thursday time frame, it will die out into parts of Mexico, but leave over its leaving precipitation into Texas. So you've got Sunday night, you've got Tuesday, you got Wednesday, and then Thursday, you got the leftover effects from Pamela, spreading rain into San Antonio, Austin, getting into parts of Dallas again with some heavier rains. Nothing severe then, but just some welcome rains moving back into Texas with that storm system moving across. As you can see, the snow event will be over by then, but there's Pamela leaving the mark. We'll start continuing to push down here into Central America here, leaving the leftover rains into South Texas, into Oklahoma, into parts of Louisiana and Arkansas here, as this cooler air will finally start to push off just a tad bit further to the east. It'll lose a lot of its colder punch, but it's still bringing the cooler conditions. And we actually have to watch the remnants of the leftover remnants of Pamela by the time we get into next weekend, as some of this could actually feed back into the Gulf of Mexico, and they could actually regenerate into the Gulf. So that's definitely something I'll be looking at, but that's still a long ways away, but that could be a possibility on the table. So yes, let's look at the overall wind swath over the next 7 days and what those two systems, man, very heavy winds are going to be packing a punch from much of Utah into Arizona, Nevada, into Colorado, into New Mexico here with some very heavy winds. Underneath that into Montana and Wyoming, getting into parts of the Dakotas here, and yes, spreading into Texas as that jet stream will be very active. There's the wind swath with Pamela, so you can see it definitely dies out in the mountains. And there's that system of Invest 92L off the coast. Yes, we could be seeing some higher winds with that if an organized system takes shape, but I'm not expecting to make landfall. There's the heavier rains over the next 7 days. Some welcome rain out west. They'll take all they can get. But yes, a lot of this will fishtail off to the south and then bring in some very heavy rains into parts of the Dakotas, North Dakota and South Dakota, as we've got multiple systems coming in for Texas, into Oklahoma, into Kansas, into Missouri here, with some heavier rains moving back in. And then there along the coast of the Carolinas with that heavier rain filtering in back then with that organized system. There's the heavier snow that's going to fall over the next 7 days with that blizzard-like conditions for much of Montana into Wyoming, getting into Utah here, as well as western parts of Colorado and Nevada here. And the GFS model is even actually more bullish. So yes, I'm expecting a big snow event with this storm system. Could be multi feet of snow into some of the higher elevations. And I'm expecting some blizzard warnings to really starting to take shape and probably come out as we get into the day on Monday and Tuesday timeframe for next week. So I appreciate you guys watching. I know there's a lot to cover today, so I'm thankful for you tuning in. Definitely like this video to let the YouTube know that you value my content, and catch me in the next video where I protect you before and after the storm.